The Day I Lost 58 Minutes by Jimmy Locklear. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. That's from Joshua 10:13. It was a typical Saturday morning in mid-July. We had returned 2 days earlier from 5 days at Carolina Beach. This was our 6th summer to be house guests for a week with our good friend Sue Bodner, who had a beautifully perched large 3-bedroom home on the top floor of a beachfront condominium property. We were always refreshed after our beach visit that usually occurred a few days before Jenny had to gear up for returning to her position as an ESOL teacher in a local public middle school. After baking some whole wheat waffles garnished with fresh strawberries, my plan was to do at least 3 errands before lunch. We had been doing lots of cleaning and decluttering for the previous 6 weeks, so one of my stops was to drop off some bags of household items and clothing to the local Goodwill store. I also needed to pick up some dry cleaning from the neighborhood laundry, and I had a winning lottery ticket worth $12 that I'd picked up at some point and needed to redeem it. As was typical for me, I might also decide to do some other errands if requested by Jenny or Jed, or if other needs came to mind. As I drove away from the house, my only decision was how to sequence my route to the chosen stops I intended to make. I had no idea that the 5-mile loop that I intended to take would be dramatically interrupted by the loss of 58 minutes. The small shopping center where I planned to pick up a few dry cleaned items included 2 restaurants, a dollar store, a children's play unit, a packaged beverage store, a sub shop, dry cleaners, and an immediate med clinic. The property is bordered by a small park on one side and a large pizza restaurant on the opposite side. I pulled into a parking spot for my silver 2015 Acura RDX at approximately 12:15 p.m., grabbed my claim ticket, and walked into the cleaners. My credit card was swiped at 12:23 p.m. to pay for the laundered items, and I walked back to my car. I opened the back door on the driver's side and hung up Jenny's sweater and 2 pairs of slacks on the available hook, then closed the door and got into the driver's seat. Time, apparently, stopped at that point. The next thing I remember, I was sitting on the ground under a tree some 400 feet away from the dry cleaners on the opposite side of the parking lot next to the pizza restaurant. My tongue hurt and blood was oozing from my mouth as I sent the following message to my wife Jenny at 1:21 p.m. Me, can you pick me pick me up at Fellini's? Jenny, are you okay? Me, warm. Jenny, on my way. I looked up and saw that my car had been moved across the parking lot, actually driven by me, and was parked and turned off at the end of a row of parked vehicles, but not in a designated spot. Jenny arrived shortly and quickly came over and offered me a bottle of water since I said I was warm. She sweetly asked me, "What happened?" I said, I don't know. "Did you fall down?" she asked. "No," I said. Did you know your mouth is bleeding? It is? I ask. I need to go to the restroom. We then got in her car in the Fellini's lot and drove around to where my car was. We started walking toward the medical clinic only to discover that it was closed. So we went next door to the package store and slowly entered. Jenny asked them if we could use their restroom. They hesitated at first, then agreed when Jenny said that it was an emergency. I walked down the narrow, bottle-filled aisles still a bit wobbly, and Jenny hoped I didn't knock any of the bottles onto the concrete floor. While I was using their restroom in the back of the store, Jenny called 911 and asked for EMS to come and take me to the hospital. One of the employees at the liquor store brought us a chair, and shortly thereafter, I heard the siren of an emergency vehicle that pulled up in front of the store. By the time the EMTs were asking us questions, we had figured out that I had about 58 minutes that I couldn't account for, that I had bitten my tongue before regaining consciousness. It appeared that I had experienced some kind of a seizure or loss of consciousness for some reason. My mind was foggy as I was trying to remember what might have taken place. My lower back felt very sore, which made us wonder if I had fallen or experienced some stress that had affected the muscles in my lower back. I gave Jenny the keyless entry fob to my car, and she pulled it into a parking spot under the trees while I was on my way to the ER via the EMS vehicle. She then followed us to the hospital in her car. According to the hospital records, I was admitted to the Emory University Hospital emergency department at 2:31 p.m. Given my coronary artery disease and heart attack history, the first test was an EKG followed by several blood analysis tests. The EKG was the same as the last one that was done at the Emory Clinic several months previously, so no clues there. Given that I was going to need several additional tests to try to figure out what was going on, the attending physician suggested that I be moved to a transitional room that was still part of the emergency department, but was more like a typical room on a floor in the hospital. That was perfect for me to be able to rest between tests and get something to eat. Because of my lacerated tongue, I was on a soft diet and was having my food machine ground so that I could eat something of substance along with Jell-O, mashed potatoes, and applesauce. At approximately 4:45 p.m., I had a couple of chest x-rays done. My lungs were clear and heart media stenum was normal. Sorry for that. There was no acute osseous abnormality. According to the doctor's review of the x-ray, no acute disease. Later in the evening, an EEG was done. This is an electropherogram test, a test used to find problems related to electrical activity of the brain. The technician attached lots of wires to my head and recorded brain waves. It was interesting to read in the reports the reason given for ordering the test. I had experienced a transient ischemic attack that resulted in an altered mental status. Some of you may remember a movie from 1980 titled Altered States, which included the recording of experience people had as a result of hallucinogenic drugs. I promise I've not used any illegal drugs. I had had a transient ischemic attack. At around 10 p.m., I had a CT exam of my head that showed no acute intracranial abnormality. What a long day. I was exhausted, my tongue hurt badly, and my lower back was sore. Hopefully, I could sleep soon. After the EEG, and further confirmed by the subsequent MRI, MRA of my neck and head that I had on the 15th, one of the doctors told me that there was an indication of a previously undetected stroke that I might have experienced some time ago that could have triggered this loss of consciousness or seizure. There was no acute infarction. There was no mass or mass effect. I had the MRI and MRA of my neck and head around noon on Sunday. I was asked by the technicians if I was claustrophobic, and I said no. I soon learned that I was wrong when it came to an MRI tube with a cloth covering my face. So even though I was enjoying classic rock music on my headset, I had to ask for some drugs to relax me. In the meantime, I tried to relax as best I could. After being discharged, I've been taking Keppra twice daily and have had a follow-up with my internist. I had a follow-up with a nurse practitioner in the neurology clinic in mid-August, where I received further understanding of what to expect going forward, or what I can do to improve my condition. My official diagnosis was a complex partial seizure. Next, I'll be meeting with my cardiologist to discuss the medicines I'm taking and whether any changes need to be made. As I've reflected upon my experience and what happened and what could have happened, I'm reminded of my fragility without the presence of the Holy Spirit. Without Jesus, we are without hope for feeling and experiencing all that God offers us in His creation. Whether you believe there are guardian angels assigned to us or the Holy Spirit is resident in our hearts or souls, I know that when my brain was malfunctioning, there was a power at work in me to function and guide me. My heart reminds me that creation is broken, that I am broken, that my body is broken in many ways that I'm not even aware of. So I guess that could be the theme for what I've experienced this past 2 weeks. It was about this time of day 2 weeks ago when I lost an hour. Apparently my brain went into free fall, and I wasn't conscious of what I was doing. Yet in those moments, the Spirit was still alive in me. The Spirit was comforting and protecting my life. When I could have driven right into traffic or over a cliff or into a building, I simply drove to an open spot in the parking lot, stopped, turned off the car, got out, and walked over under a tree and sat down. There, as if protected like Jonah, the Lord brought me back to consciousness and led me to somehow send a text to Jenny for help, and I was protected from further harm. So when I'm tempted to feel frustrated by the slowness of getting a follow-up appointment so that I can get back to normal activity, I'm stopped by the observation of my God-fearing Emory internist, who observed to Jenny and I when I shared my story with him this week. "You are blessed," he said. "In the midst of brokenness, I am blessed and protected. So I offer this observation to you. In the midst of your brokenness, you are blessed and protected. You are comforted and loved. Embrace that blessing and comfort and protection."